Greetings, mech warriors! As a new player, BattleTech can be a daunting experience when deciding how to put your force together. Unlike other tabletop war games, BattleTech is much looser when it comes to force building rules, and that lack of restriction is where players can get hung up. Other games have entire books dedicated to telling you what exact units belong to a specific faction, and the rules and restrictions on putting your armies together. BattleTech also has faction-specific sourcebooks, which sometimes include random assignment tables, or random allocation tables, which are as close as it gets to assigning units to a certain team, but those tables are not a common force-building tool. Two of the most common rulebooks, Total Warfare and the BattleMech Manual, don't even include specific force-building rules. Total Warfare has a brief blurb about what a force looks like tucked in some lore, and they both bring up battle value, but that's it. The Campaign Operations Rulebook is the best resource for building forces, but it is also a relatively complicated book. My intention here is to clear the thick fog and break down force building to its most common basics used by most players. A few notes on this video. It is meant for brand new players. This video will focus on mech versus mech games. The term unit will refer to a single battle mech or mech. The term force will refer to the total units a player is fielding. The most important thing to keep in mind when setting up a game of BattleTech is to communicate and agree with your opponent on all force building rules. Here are two most common restrictions seen on nearly all friendly games of BattleTech: era and battle value. These two items can be enough to set up a game, however the lack of direction can make for some potentially disappointing matches. What if one player brings many cheap BV units, and the other only brings a couple expensive BV units? What if one player only includes rare and powerful units? Those games can be less fun for one of the players. So let's look at some of the other common force building criteria most players follow to avoid fun-destroying chaos: formations and skill restrictions. Let's break down what each of these items really mean. Era provides a technology restriction. With one notable exception, each era advances the technology level available to all forces, meaning new units and new variants of old units are available in each new era, usually equipped with more powerful or complicated technology. Each later era includes the vast majority of units from the previous eras as available. Era can be found on most modern record sheets, or can always be found on the online master unit list. The MUL is a valuable tool for list building. The currently available eras are the Star League era from year 2005 to 2780, the Succession Wars era from 2781 to 3049, the Clan Invasion era from 3050 to 3061, the Civil War era from 3062 to 3067, the Jihad era from 3068 to 3080, the Dark Age era from 3081 to 3150, the IlClan era from 3151 to current. A note on the Star League era. This era is a rarer era to play in, as units are very limited and basic outside of the Royal variants produced for the Star League Defense Force faction. These are exceptionally rare, powerful units for this era, and even more rare in the Succession Wars era, and their inclusion in your force should be agreed upon by all players. Battle value is the point system BattleTech uses to provide a comparison of power between units. An AS-7-K Atlas, worth 2,175 BV, is much more powerful than a COM-2D Commando at 541 BV. The BV considers many factors, including weapons and equipment in a unit. BV can be found on most modern record sheets, or can always be found on the master unit list. Formations are the organizational structure of your force. or put more simply, it is what your force looks like in numbers of units. The Inner Sphere factions, the clans, and ComStar all have different formation setups. You do not have to be familiar with the lore of BattleTech to create an accurate force, but it does help to have a fundamental understanding of the factions at play. Unless using advanced rules from one of the many available sourcebooks or rulebooks, there are no special skills or abilities available to these factions. They are mostly just for flavor. If you need to make a lore-accurate list for your faction, again, MUL is a wonderful tool for finding faction availability for units. But keep in mind that salvage is a common concept in the BattleTech universe, so maybe it's a-okay to include units not regularly found in your faction, sometimes. Again, discuss this with your opponent before play. Let's look at a list of common Inner Sphere factions and what the common formations are for them. The Capellan Confederation of House Liao, the Draconis Combine of House Kurita, the Federated Sons of House Davian, the Free Worlds League of House Merrick, the Lyran Commonwealth of House Steiner, and many mercenary groups such as Wolves Dragoons, Kellhounds, Grey Death Legion, etc. The smallest formation of an Inner Spheres faction is a unit. This is one mech. The next formation up, the most common for beginner play, is a lance. This is 4 units, or 4 mechs. The next formation up from a lance is a company. This is 3 lances, or 12 mechs. The list gets bigger, but games with these forces would last all day, if not multiple days, and might be best attempted after some experience. Next, let's look at a list of common clan factions and what the common formations are for them. Clan Smoke Jaguar, Clan Diamond Shark, Clan Ghost Bear, Clan Steel Viper, Clan Novacat, Clan Jade Falcon, Clan Wolf. The smallest formation of a clan faction is a point. This is 1 mech. The next formation up, and the most common for beginner play, is a star. This is 5 points, or 5 mechs. The next formation up from a star is a binary. This is 2 stars, or 10 mechs. The next formation up from a binary is a trinary. This is 3 stars, or 15 mechs. Again, the list gets bigger, but for now, this is a good starting point. Next, let's look at a list of common ComStar factions and what the common formations are for them. ComGuard, Word of Blake. The smallest formation of a ComStar faction is a level 1. This is 1 mech. The next formation up, the most common for beginner play, is a level 2. This is 6 level 1s, or 6 mechs. The next formation up from a level 2 is a level 3. This is 6 level 2s, or 36 mechs. And again, the list gets bigger, but this is as far as we will cover here. Next, we are going to explore skills. These include your individual unit's gunnery and piloting skills. Adjusting BV points, you can adjust these skills to be more or less experienced, making dice modifiers easier or harder. We won't get into the BV math involved here, but again, Master Unit List has awesome tools for adjusting these, which will do the math for you. Here are the experience levels and the skills associated with them. Green, at a 6 piloting and 5 gunnery skill level. Regular, at a 5-4 skill level. This is the accepted default built into each unit's regular BV. Veteran, at a 4-3 skill level. In many sources, it is said that clan units should have this rating, but the default is still regular and BV would still have to be spent for the veteran status. Elite, at a 3-2 skill level. Heroic, at a 2-1 skill level. It is possible to use the BV system to adjust these skills outside of these norms, but it is good form to keep the piloting and gunnery skills within a maximum difference of 1. So, in summary, the most basic way to create a list for a game of BattleTech is choose an era, select your BV limit, select your faction and formation size, then select your skill limits, if any. At this point, one might be wondering what exactly are the suggested BV limits, or if there are formation limits at each era. Here is a good place to start, but feel free to adjust the BV limit to suit the kind of games you want to play. Remember, the higher the BV limit is, the bigger the forces, the bigger the mechs, and/or the better skills of your list. For Star League and Succession Wars era games, try 6000 BV. The only available factions are Inner Sphere. ComStar was around and had a military force, but they did not reveal their military might until the Clan Invasion. For Clan Invasion and Civil War era games, try 7500 BV. All 3 base factions are available. It might be a good idea to take 2 lances against a single star or level 2. Clan Omnimechs and ComStar Battle Mechs tend to have superior firepower in this era due to access to advanced technologies. For Jihad era and up, try 9000 BV. All 3 base factions are available until after the Dark Age era. ComStar was effectively destroyed before the IlClan era. By this time, the Inner Sphere factions have essentially caught up technologically, and the focus should be on even numbers of units on each opposing force for balanced play. Also, new units for the IlClan era are still being released at the time of this video, so later adjustments on the suggested BV might be needed. Remember, these are merely BV suggestions for small forces, usually starting at a Lance, Star, or Level 2, and will not allow the use of many assault battle mechs. Adjust them to your liking. Also, as hinted before, it might be a good idea to try to keep forces between the players as close to the same number of units as possible. A lance-on-lance battle is quite even. A lance-on-star can be fairly even depending on the era. A lance on level 2 can be harder to balance, as even though BV does a decent job of balancing each force's power, the larger number of activations will work in the level 2's favor, so maybe a star on level 2 battle might be a better choice. A big note: since there is a lack of definite direction in force building in the standard rulebooks, the items covered in this video are mostly opinion or suggestions based on my experience as a new player to BattleTech. Different player groups might have slightly different ways they like to set their games up. And that's all the beginner advice I have on building your first forces. Please feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or constructive criticism, or subscribe if you want to see more of this content. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time.